think I'm talking to myself here. But yeah, as I was saying, um, I slept 4 hours last night. Stay up for no reason. Um, but I got my keys, not my keys, but instructions on how to get into my new building just now. So even though I'm not supposed to move in until tomorrow, I'm just gonna go check it out today. Um, yeah, I'm excited for my new place. I just I'm ready to move on from this apartment, the memories that I have in this apartment, and I'm excited for what's next to come. Um, but yeah, this is the last live that I'll be doing from this place. I yeah, I'm never coming back into this room ever again in my life after tomorrow. Um, yeah, so we'll just wait for a little bit for people to trickle in, and then we'll start doing some stuff. We'll do Claude code today. We'll do hooks. But I came back from lunch with one of my friends and mentor, and I asked him, "Hey, do you want to be on the board of advisors for this new company that I just started?" And he said yes. So I have a new advisor, I guess a new director on the board of directors today. And I'm very lucky to have this guy giving me all the advice and all that throughout the years. So yeah, today's been a good day. I slept 4.5 hours, but we're streaming for one last time in this apartment. Yeah, let me know in the chat how you've been. Whoever's watching, I'd love to talk to you. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, how's everyone's Friday going? I need to pack today. It's yes, last night. Oh, I remember why last night I went to bed late. I was editing a skincare video for somebody. Yeah. Getting errors while replying. Okay, hopefully you can respond on the chat now. Previous message, busy day, gonna be busy weekend. You know what, Testy Cool, I'm glad you're here. What's happening on your weekend? Let me know. I'll be moving this weekend, so I might be a little bit busy. But yes, sir, we're packing today. Oh my god, I had to leave it to the last day, right, to pack. I know my chair is coming to my new place today. Your name's Vlad? Yeah, nice to meet you. I mean, I don't know. Testy cool sounds kind of ridiculous, which I like. I guess am I sad I'm leaving? No, I was saying on mute that I'm happy to move on from all the memories in this apartment. This apartment had seen me, you know, at my lowest and my highest in the last 2 years. It had seen some of my biggest transformations, from a 9-to-5 developer to founder, community builder, and all that in between. So I'm glad that I've lived here, even though I really fucking hate this place. There's so many things I hate about it. For example, the hallways always smells like some weird stuff. And I hate it so much. But so many good things happened here when I was living here. Justin Trudeau and Katy Perry are having dinner. That's interesting. Yeah, I'm like so distracted recently. Yeah, But me and my co-founder, we went to get a bank account yesterday, and she gave me a notebook because everybody knows I'm going through some stuff. So everyone's been extra nice to me, which I really appreciate. Anyways, we're gonna talk about Claude Code today, right? We're gonna talk about hooks. Okay, let me share my screen. We'll get going. Back to regular programming. Okay, let's see if I can share my screen properly. All right, and we're back with another episode of Claude Code on live streams. So we talked about all this stuff before. If you're missing any of these things, you can go back and watch my old videos. I think I'm gonna edit some of them and then put out some shorter clips so you don't have to watch the whole thing to get what you need. But today we're gonna talk about hooks. This right here, and I'm sure many of you haven't used this because unless you have some sort of an elaborate system that you need to log or trace your Claude Code, or you're using Claude Code as part of your product, not as an end user, but as a part of your product stack, you're most likely not using Hook at this point. But we're gonna talk about that anyways because I want you to have some sense of what this means so that you can, go to sleep, wake up tomorrow, have some ideas. Your world's a little bit broader, in terms of Claude Code knowledge. So let me give you the highest definition. Hooks are just different stages in Claude Code execution that you can run code at. So if you're familiar with something like React, you know that there's a life cycle to React components, right? When the component mounts, renders, unmount, when it updates. And you can, depending on when those events happen, you can run code at certain stages. So same thing for agents, right? Like an agent, when it runs, there's the moment when it decides which tool to use. There's a moment when it decides which arguments to put inside of a tool. There's this moment in time when it executes the tool. And at any of those given points, you can manipulate data or context. So you can put in more context, you can remove context, you can run code, you can trace, you can log, all kinds of stuff. So what does this matter? Because when you run Claude Code, you as an end user, you might only see the end result, right? You see the steps, but to your terminal, if you run it in headless mode, you might only see the end result if you were to automate it, which is not super useful if you want to capture the steps in between. And Claude Code usually runs a long time for long running task. And if you were to use Claude Code as a deep agent that runs for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you kind of want, maybe a notification to send to your Slack or something to ping your computer once it's done. Maybe send yourself an email. Maybe your company needs some sort of compliance that you have to send metadata to your company's IT department or something like that. Yeah, so hooks are just code that runs at certain stages in Claude Code's lifecycle. I'm actually very sleepy today, so we're gonna keep it to half an hour. Okay, so I'm just gonna take a look at this real quick, and this is very useful once I talk about Claude Code SDK, because once you put Claude Code on a sandbox, you kind of don't see any results until until you get the final result. Essentially, you don't see a step in between. It's not like when you build a agent with land graph or whatever, you get to see the intermediate steps. Claude Code is more black box, but they do allow you to hook into certain stages in the execution life cycle, so you can run code at certain steps. Maybe save to database is another one. Yeah. So let's read this together. So hooks. This page provides reference documentation to implementing hooks in Claude Code configuration. Claude Code hooks are configured in your settings file. So the same place you would put your agents and stuff like that, and configuration in your code base for Claude Code. So let me just pull up some here. So in this project here, I have my my Claude Code folder right here. So that's where it's supposed to be. And then we're just gonna create a settings.json file, so something like this. And then we add the structure here. So we just add a key called hooks, and then we add when that should run. And then we run the command. So the command could point to like a Python script, a bash script, anything like that. So the possibilities are endless. So read this real quick. To match your pattern to match tool names, case sensitive. So you can run a hook when a certain tool runs, not any tool runs. So that's another thing. So there's a lot of like customization you can have for when to run this hook. And you can run it, using a regex pattern. So it's like all tools that has read at the beginning, because maybe your team or you decide that when you write custom tools for Claude Code, you want to add like the prefix read so that people know it's a read tool or write, so it's a write tool. Yeah, so you can do regex like that for like to apply rules to several different tools. Use the star to match all tools, so like runs whenever a tool runs. So let's say I use like Datadog, I can like have a hook that like logs the Claude Code's tool result out or something like that. Maybe I can use that to fine tune something later. Who knows? I don't know if that's against terms and condition, but one of those ideas. You can also use empty string or leave match with blank. Hooks, array of commands to execute when the pattern matches. Type, currently only command supported. Command, the bash command, only bash command. Timeout, so you don't want your agent to wait forever, so maybe if the command takes too long or it fails, you can just time out. For events like user prompt submit, so not only when the tools are decided or called, you can also run hooks when user does a thing. So everything user does on Claude has some sort of event emitted, right? So let me just go to development here. City homework. So every time, like, let's say I type in something here, like, what's the weather like? And I press enter, that's an event right there. So we can have a hook right there that's just like maybe sanitize the user's input or log input. Maybe you deploy Claude Code to your entire team and then you need to log what everyone's searching, which is not cool, but I know some IT team wants that. Then yeah. Yeah, either way. That's how it is. Let's see, what else can we talk about in terms of hooks? Let's just read this real quick. So this is how you define a hook. This is the event that's supposed to happen. So when the user when I press enter on my prompt right there, that's when this event emits. And then you set up the hooks here, and then you have an array of like essentially multiple things that could happen in a event. So Vlad says, I'm gonna try to remember your name. Maybe tomorrow I'll call you Testy Cool again, but I know for now your name is Vlad. So we can use speech to text to let us know what it's doing at every tool call. You can, yeah. I guess what you can do is you could potentially run a almost like a web server or like a program on the side, and then you have Claude Code kind of like has a hook that runs every time users hit submit or whenever like the tool call result is there, and then you just pipe that to this other tool that will run a text to speech thing that can then talk it out loud in the terminal. Or maybe what you mean is like when I actually don't. I'm trying to think like, wow, if you were to speak into it, what would that look like? Because you definitely have a hook. I'm sure there's probably an event where, as soon as you can run it at like a. Honestly, I don't know. I actually don't know. I wonder if I can do it like this. So, I'm gonna go exit, and I'm gonna say Claude, what's the weather like? This is not headless mode as far as I know. What the? Accept terms, have it, accept terms, have this. Okay. Okay, so I'm assuming you could probably, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's an event that is like pre-user input, but then you need an interface to like start recording your voice or something like that, right? Oh, yeah. I think I know what you're saying now. So, yeah. So at every stage in tool call, yeah, you can have a hook to kind of say it out loud or lock the console. Which Claude Code in interactive mode already does, but like when you're running it headless, it doesn't. That's why teams are using hooks to emit intermediate tool call results outside of the sandbox back into the front end. In terms of like text to speech, I guess you could, but you need to pipe that result somewhere and have like a audio interface running somewhere, maybe in a separate terminal, for that to happen. Yeah, I don't know. Project specific hook scripts, you can use the environment variable, Claude project ID, project directory, only available when Claude Code spawns the hook command to reference scripts stored in the project, ensuring that they work regardless of Claude's current directory. Okay. So we need this variable right here, and then hopefully this will point to, I'm assuming, the path for this one right here. And then, okay. Man, I'm really sleepy right now. Real sleepy today. Pre-tool use. Okay, so run after Claude creates tool parameters. So after the agent had decided which tool to use and which arguments to put in that tool. How could this be useful? Again, if you run it headless, you kind of want this so that you can stream it back to front end, so that users just doesn't sit there and be like, what's happening? Yeah. Post tool use, so immediately after tool use. And if you want like a similar pattern, the AI SDK, like if you look at other frameworks, it's like a very similar thing where you can tap into each steps in an agent loop. It's just that these things, the agent loop is more open than like Claude Code, but Claude Code, because it's proprietary, they only open, the life cycle stages for you to do certain things. But if you were to run an LM in a loop, you have access to every single step. So it's the same concept. So I'm trying to see if I can show you an example of the step here. Step, multi-step tool use, accessing all steps. Yeah, so like for example here, like it says on step finish. It's a very similar concept, right? So it's like at the life cycle stage where tool call is complete, you have access to the text generated, the tool calls results, tool calls metadata, finish reason. This is usually like, an escape character of some kind that can be parsed, and then, token usage and stuff like that. You can also log token usage using hook to your database, so you can keep track of your spends and stuff like that. There are a lot of tools out there that allows you to like track the metadata of your Claude Code spend and things like that. Not just spend, but also like how often do you accept like a generation, for example. I'm sure you can capture that using hooks, so that you can say like, oh, this month our team had accepted 60% of Claude Code generation or something like that, which you can use to then present to your boss and be like, yo, this has been bringing us a lot of value. But yeah, that's what it is. Anyways, there are life cycle stuff here. So even though we'll talk about the theory stuff today, it's going to be very useful once I start building with it, because I need it for my project, which is CLI on the cloud. Let me see if I can find it. haven't been coding for a while. Let's see, CLI on the cloud. Yeah. So here we can only talk to Claude Code or Cursor CLI, but we only see the end result, which could take 30 seconds, a minute, because Claude Code runs a long time. But if we can stream out the intermediate steps, then it's much better. So it's very important that we use hook when we use headless mode or SDK mode, which we don't talk about today. Some use cases are notification, so you can notify yourself. When Claude Code needs to use permission, Claude needs to use grep. Yeah, this is like, you can't just press enter, walk away, come back, and then you expect it to have done 10 things, but it hadn't done anything because it's waiting for you to accept its request to use fine or something like that. Yeah, this allows you to add additional context based on a prompt conversation, validate prompts, block certain types of prompt. So you can use guardrails here. Again, a lot of this stuff applies for when you use Claude Code as part of your product stack, as opposed to like you as an end user. Unless your team deploys like a Claude Code instance that is decked out with like custom stuff for your employees, then this also makes sense. What up, Dwayne? Good to see you. Speaking of which, Dwayne, I need to connect you with Masa. So Masa is based out of Dallas. We talked yesterday. He's gonna join the bootcamp. So I need to connect him with you because I told him about you being in the same state and doing AI tinkers and stuff. Yeah, I told him you're a cool guy. So yeah, I gotta connect him with you. Oh my God, everybody's here. The whole crew's here. Oh my God. Okay. We're just looking at different life cycle stages that we can run hooks in. So stop runs when the main Claude Code agent has finished responding. So that's at the very end. This also does not run when the user interrupts. So if you press escape, this event does not emit. So what you can do is, in my head, what I'm thinking is you can log metadata essentially, like cost, usage, tokens usage, and stuff like that into your DB or into your logging system. What is Mary saying right now? Is she keep the chat PG, guys? Yeah, we're talking about hooks here. So like, all we're talking about is how hook is so important when you're using Claude as part of your product stack, as opposed to like an end user. But two use cases come to my mind. So one is, your team customized, decked out a Claude Code instance with all these hooks that hooks up to your IT service, your logging system, and then deploy that to your employees. That's one thing. When you get onboarded, you get an instance of Claude Code that has access to like Datadog and all that stuff, and logging and tracing. And the second thing is using Claude Code as part of your product. So all this hook stuff allows you to stream like post-tool, pre-tool, all the life cycle stuff onto front end, so the user doesn't just sit there and have no idea until like the very end. Yeah, so it's two of the main use cases. Session ends, so when the entire session ends, runs when the Claude Code session ends, useful for cleanup task, logging session statistics. Yeah, so when a user ends, their session, we can just save that to DB, and then we can over time have time series data to kind of look at it and be like, oh, employee number 15 is using all of our tokens. We should probably get him to talk to HR or something. So the reason field in the hook input will be one of clear, session cleared, logout, prompt input exit, other. Okay. Pre-compact. This is interesting because Claude Code, before it runs out of context, so you talk in Claude Code for like 10, 20 minutes. At some point, it's going to run out of context window because the model only has so much token context window, right? So what the default behavior is it's going to try to summarize your conversation and hopefully have more emphasis on the more recent messages. But you can control that. So before it starts to compact, you could compact before it gets really convoluted so that you can retain more information and get better performance. Or you just compact right there and then. Yeah. Session starts. These are also events that your hook can run. There's nothing about specific hooks here yet because it's different for everybody, right? Hook input. Hooks receives JSON data via standard input containing session information and event-specific data. Session ID. Every time you start a session in Claude, that's an ID. Transcript path. Transcript. Does that mean we can do voice? What do you mean by transcript? Or maybe the messages history? Path to conversation JSON. So this is just messages history. Current working directory. Okay. Hook event name. So that's the event. So for example, like session start, pre-compact, stop, users prompt submit, those kinds of things that go in that field. Pre-tool use input. Okay. Exact schema for tool input. Okay. So whenever an agent decides a tool to use, that's when you can also run a hook. Hook, when you say hook, they're just functions. Even in React, hooks are just functions. Components are just functions. Post tool use input. So after the tool has been run, maybe there's a result comes back, you can also run a hook. Trace that maybe. Yeah. All these are all events. Hook output. There are two ways for hooks to return output back to Claude Code. The output communicates whether to block and any feedback that should be shown to Claude and the user. Simple exit code. So it's successful. We have exit code 0 or 2 if it's not successful. So we'll get that in our hook. If the hook fails or succeeds. JSON output. Okay. Hook can return JSON output, comment JSON fields, continue, stop reason, suppress output. Okay. Hooks can return structured JSON in standard output for more sophisticated control. All hook types can include these optional fields. So they're all available for you for free. Okay. If continue is false, Claude stops processing after the hooks run. For pre-tool use, okay. This is different from permission decision, deny, okay. Again, this documentation is all about like which event you can hook into. But let's see an example of a hook. Execute example, bash command validation. Okay, so validation rows. Yeah, so for example, what you can do is, let's say you have a custom tool or a tool in Claude Code that for running a script. That's the execute tool. And then what you can do is you can run a hook that is pre-tool use to validate the input of the hook to see if the inputs are correct. And then you can stop the tool from running altogether if you want to. Or yeah. So it's almost like very useful for guardrails. You can pre-check users' input. You can pre-check tools input and then check output and kind of like decide whether or not to even return to the user at all. Yeah. JSON output example, pre-tool use with approval. Okay. If tool name is read, file path, tool input get file path, and then you return this thing here. Print JSON dump output decision approve, reason document file auto approve, suppress output true. Okay, so we don't necessarily need to return anything because these things we can just print to the console, and that's, I'm assuming that's automatically gets picked up by Claude Code because it's in standard input. I mean standard output. Yeah. Did I use hooks for any of my projects? I'm planning to use hooks for the command line interface on the cloud project because right now user has to wait until the final result for Claude Code to see the final result. But if I put in hook, then I can stream like the intermediate steps out from the sandbox to front end, and then front end display that, so that the user doesn't have to wait till the very end because Claude Code takes a while to do stuff. So. Configuring hooks for MCP tools. You can target specific MCP tools. Okay, so just like your built-in Claude Code tools, you can use regex or like specific names target. So for example, only run this at the pre-tool use stage of the read file tool, for example. But then MCP comes in play with maybe 50 more tools. You can run that against those tools that only exist on MCP server as well. See more examples. Yeah, like, oh, more examples. Okay, security consideration. Disclaimer, use at your own risk. Nice. Cloud Code hooks execute arbitrary shell commands on the system automatically. You are solely responsible for the commands you use. Okay. Can we get a hook for the main Cloud Code thread? I don't know what you mean by that. Like stream it to my mobile or something when I'm not at the computer. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You can, at the very end of a session end, not there, but maybe like at tool call end, maybe. Notification input. That's one. You can use. Okay, hold on. Hooks input. Hooks event. There you go. So notification runs when Cloud Code sends notification. So Cloud Code has built-in notification. You can hook into that, or you can hook into like agent stop or something like that. Or yeah. So when an agent like is done completely, you can send it to a web server that's hooked up to your Twilio, and send the message to your mobile phone, just so you can get back to your desk and away from the loved ones to go back to work. Yeah, so you can do that for the stop event, or you can do that for a notification event. Because I don't know if you noticed, but like when you run Cloud Code in your terminal, you go away for a little bit, you come back, there's actually like a batch, notification batch in your terminal for you to know. So this is like a built-in event. I'll probably strongly recommend you use this instead of this, unless you have a specific reason to. Examples. Okay, I'm about to fall asleep right now. I think we get a pretty good sense of what this is. Once I start streaming more regularly again on Monday when I have Wi-Fi at my new place, I will show you guys how to actually put this stuff into a Cloud Code that runs on the cloud. But yeah, this is my last stream in my current apartment. I'm moving out tomorrow. I'm unplugging my computer right after this because I gotta pack. But yeah, it's been fun, guys. I guess this is goodbye. No, it's not. We're back on Monday. But yeah, I will connect Dwayne with Masa, who's one of my new student at the bootcamp, because he's based in Dallas. Good to see you, Vlad. Good to see everybody, Dwayne, Mary, everybody else on the stream. Yeah, but I will see y'all in 48, 62 hours, something like that. Yeah. All right. I will go now, but I'll see y'all later.